You ever notice how the second you stop chasing someone, they start chasing you? There's a reason for that. Most people fall for someone not just because they like them, but because that person makes them feel just a little unsure, a little off balance, and that's what keeps them coming back. Today, I'm going to show you how to shake his confidence, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that makes him realize he could lose you, and that thought terrifies him in the best way possible. When you're first getting to know someone, especially someone you're attracted to, the temptation to always be available can feel overwhelming. You want to keep the momentum going. You want to show them you're interested. But here's the paradox most people don't realize until they've been burned by it. Being too available too soon doesn't create connection. It kills the mystery. And mystery is what drives desire. That's why the first move to shake his confidence and get him to start falling harder is to pull back, just enough for him to feel it. This doesn't mean you suddenly ghost him or play games. It's not about ignoring texts or pretending to be busy when you're not. It's about creating emotional space. When you're constantly reaching out, replying in seconds, or always the one suggesting plans, you're not giving him any reason to wonder about you. And wondering is powerful. Wondering creates curiosity, and curiosity is what makes people emotionally invest. When you pull back slightly, you invite him into that space. You give him a moment to feel what it's like not to have your attention on tap. And that moment, that silence, that's when he starts to think about you more deeply. We've been taught that if you like someone, you have to show it all the time. But attraction doesn't work that way. It's built in moments of tension, uncertainty, and anticipation. If he feels like he has you 100%, before he's even earned that level of access, there's no room for the attraction to grow. Instead of trying to keep his attention by constantly engaging, let the dynamic breathe. Let him reach out first. Let him notice the space where your energy used to be. When he starts to miss your presence, even subtly, that's when you're in his head. A guy's confidence in the early stages of dating often comes from how on control he feels. If he thinks you're already emotionally invested, he relapses. He doesn't put in as much effort. He doesn't chase because he doesn't feel he needs to. But when you create just a touch of distance, it shifts the dynamic. He starts to ask himself questions. Did she lose interest? Was I too passive? What is she thinking? That questioning shakes his certainty. And that's the moment he becomes more intentional. He'll start putting more energy into pursuing you because he wants to get back to the place where he felt confident again. Ironically, by shaking his confidence, you increase his motivation. What's crucial here is that this doesn't come from a place of punishment or manipulation. It comes from self-respect. You're not pulling back to play a role. You're doing it because you have your own life, your own boundaries, and your own sense of self-worth. You're not constantly reaching out because you don't need to. You don't have to chase him to feel validated. And that, right there, is what makes him take you seriously. The magic happens in the space between connection and curiosity. Too much connection, and there's no space for longing. Too much distance, and the connection dies. But just enough space, just enough for him to feel a flicker of uncertainty, creates emotional gravity. That's when he starts to lean in, not because you asked him to, but because he wants to. Because now, he's the one wondering how you feel. Now he's the one chasing. Most people think that if you want to keep a guy interested, you should stroke his ego, make him feel amazing, shower him with compliments, and agree with everything he says. It seems logical. If you make someone feel good about themselves, they'll want to be around you more. But in dating, that approach doesn't always land the way you think it will. In fact, when you overly validate someone, especially early on, you risk becoming just another admirer in the crowd. That's why if you really want to stand out and shake his confidence in a healthy way, you have to challenge his ego instead of worshipping it. Men are used to getting attention, especially if he's attractive, charming, or successful, chances are he's not hurting for validation. He might be used to women laughing at all his jokes, agreeing with everything he says, and being visibly impressed by him. So when you come along and don't immediately feed into that, it disrupts the pattern. You become memorable. He doesn't get the ego boost he's used to, and that makes him wonder what's different about you. He starts thinking, why isn't she reacting the way others do? What does she see, or not see, that I'm missing? That little disruption, that's where attraction begins to build. This doesn't mean being rude, dismissive, or playing hard to get just for the sake of it. It's about being honest and grounded in your own opinion. When you show that you have your own tastes, preferences, and boundaries, it tells him you're not there to please him. You're there to connect, and only if it's mutual. That energy is magnetic. When you respectfully disagree, or when you don't laugh at a joke just to be polite, or when you don't act overly impressed by his job title, you stand out. You show him that he actually has to work to earn your approval, and that's what makes it meaningful if he gets it. There's something incredibly attractive about a woman who isn't trying to win someone over, but is just being herself, unfiltered, confident, and present. If he makes a statement you don't agree with, and you're not afraid to push back a little, it shows strength. If he brags and you respond with a raised eyebrow instead of wide-eyed awe, it keeps him on his toes. That doesn't bruise his ego. Instead, it wakes him up. It signals to him that your attention isn't given freely, it's something to be earned, and that creates a shift in dynamic. He goes from assuming he has you to realizing he might not, and that realization stirs pursuit. The key is to be warm but firm. You can tease him in a playful way, call him out with a smile, or challenge his assumptions without being combative. That subtle pull creates a spark. He won't feel criticized, he'll feel intrigued. He'll start to lean in, trying to figure you out. He'll want to understand what makes you tick, what you value, and what would make you choose him. And once he realizes he doesn't automatically get your approval, he'll want it even more. When you challenge a man's ego in this way, you don't lower his confidence. You refine it. You push him to show up more genuinely. You're not stroking his ego, you're connecting with the person behind it. And when that happens, real intimacy has a chance to grow, because he's no longer just performing for validation. He's engaging with someone who sees him clearly and won't settle for surface-level charm. That's what keeps him hooked. Not because you made him feel like a king, but because you made him work for the crown. There's something deeply magnetic about a person who is already fulfilled and passionate about their life. When you're dating, especially in the early stages, the way you carry yourself and the way you fill your time send stronger signals than anything you say directly. If you want to draw someone in and make them fall for you in a real, lasting way, one of the most powerful things you can do is build a life that's already exciting, already full. One that makes them want to be part of it. When your world doesn't revolve around them, it makes them sit up, pay attention, and realize that they need to earn a place in your life. People are drawn to passion. Not just romantic passion, but life passion, goals, interests, a strong sense of direction. When a man sees that you have your own plans, priorities, and purpose, it instantly shifts the dynamic. You're not waiting for him to call. You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes. You're doing your thing. That independence signals value. It shows that you're not just someone looking to be chosen. You're someone who's choosing them, and that's a very different kind of energy. It makes them question their position. It shakes their confidence in the best way, because they know they're not the center of your universe. When you have your own life, you naturally become less reactive and more intentional. You're not making plans based on whether he texts you. You're making decisions based on what already matters to you. You're not showing up to every invitation just to keep him interested. You're weighing whether it fits into your schedule, your values, your vision. And that confidence, that natural self-respect, it's incredibly attractive. It creates a sense of challenge not in a game, playing way, but in the sense that being with you actually means something. It's not automatic, and it's not taken for granted. One of the biggest mistakes people make in dating is abandoning their own lives the second someone interesting comes along. They cancel plans, stop investing in their hobbies, spend all their free time thinking about the other person. While it feels like devotion, what it really does is remove the very energy that drew the person to you in the first place. It makes you predictable, too available, and it shifts the dynamic from mutual attraction to emotional dependence. But when you keep showing up for your own life, when you protect your routines, your joy, your identity, it reminds them why they were drawn to you in the first place. The truth is, we all want to be around people who are genuinely lit up by something. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's your work, your art, your fitness journey, your social life, your travel dreams. When you're passionate, you're present. You're not just waiting, you're living, and that makes your energy contagious. It creates a gravitational pull that makes someone want to lean in closer, not because you're asking them to, but because they can feel that being around you would elevate their own life too. This doesn't mean you never make time for the person you're dating or that you become distant and unavailable. It means you keep your sense of self fully intact. You make sure your emotional balance isn't tied to their behavior. You let your life be the stage, and they can choose whether or not to step into it. And when they do, they won't just be entering a relationship. They'll be stepping into something vibrant, inspiring, and grounded. That's when someone starts to fall, not just because of how you make them feel, but because of how you make yourself feel. And that kind of confidence doesn't just attract, it lasts. In the early stages of dating, it's tempting to show someone how much you like them by offering constant praise, deep emotional conversations, and lots of reassurance. It feels natural to want to validate a connection when you're excited about it. But the problem with giving too much emotional validation too early is that it can make a man feel like he's already won, before he's actually earned anything meaningful. When that happens, the dynamic shifts. He stops trying as hard. He assumes your feelings are secured, and in many cases, he loses the drive that keeps him truly engaged. If you want to create a relationship that builds real momentum, you have to let his actions earn your emotional investment, not hand it over at the start. Men value what they work for. If you give him validation without him having to do anything to receive it, it may feel good in the moment, but it doesn't create lasting interest. There's a big difference between showing someone you're open to connection and giving them full access to your heart on day one. When you withhold early validation, not in a manipulative way, but from a place of healthy boundaries, you're allowing space for real connection to be built through consistent effort and intention. You're saying, I'm not just here to be impressed by you. I'm here to see if you show up in a way that impresses me naturally. When a man doesn't know where he stands with you emotionally, he starts to pay more attention to how he's showing up. He becomes more intentional with his communication. He takes more care with the way he treats you. He starts trying to figure out what you like, what makes you respond, what earns your respect. That's when you become less of a casual interest and more of a genuine pursuit. The moment he feels like your approval isn't guaranteed, it creates emotional tension, the kind that deepens attraction. This is especially important if you're someone who naturally gives. You might be emotionally generous, affirming, and quick to encourage someone you like. But if you're not mindful of when and how you express that, it can come across as overinvestment. When you compliment him too soon, open up too deeply, or talk about how different he is before he's shown real consistency, you risk sending the message that your standards are low, or worse, that you're just happy to be chosen. The truth is, a man falls harder when he feels he's earned your feelings. If he thinks your heart was his from the moment he texted you twice, he has no reason to keep trying. This doesn't mean you have to be cold or distant. It means being observant. Take your time, Watch how he moves, not just how he talks. Ask yourself, is he consistent? Does he follow through? Does he make time for you without needing to be prompted? These are the things that should invite your validation, not just charm or chemistry. When you let your emotions follow his behavior instead of leading them, you protect your energy and keep the dynamic balanced. Letting him earn your emotional response also builds respect. He starts to see that your praise means something because it's not given lightly. When you do finally open up or compliment him, it has real weight. He listens. He leans in. He knows it matters because it came from a place of discernment, not desperation. And that's where true emotional attraction starts. Not from being told how great he is right away, but from your absence, the working to feel like he's genuinely earned your affection. Setting boundaries is often misunderstood in dating. People think it means being cold, creating distance, or trying to control the other person. But real boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about respect. And one of the most powerful ways to make a man fall harder is to subtly and consistently show that you have standards. When he sees that you value yourself enough to expect respect in return, it shifts how he shows up. He realizes he's not just dealing with someone who's impressed by attention, but with someone who chooses connection intentionally. That realization shakes his confidence just enough to make him step up. Early in dating, men are often testing waters. Consciously or not, they might cancel plans last minute, send mixed signals, show up late, or play it too casual. If you brush those things off or excuse them repeatedly, you're teaching him that your time and energy without any real expectations. It might seem harmless in the moment, but over time, that lack of boundaries erodes attraction. The message it sends is, you can treat me however you want, and I'll still be here. That doesn't inspire effort, it invites complacency. But the moment you respond differently, even just once, you interrupt that pattern. For example, if he cancels on you last minute, and you don't rush to reschedule or act overly understanding, you're sending a subtle but powerful signal. You're showing that your time is valuable. You're not angry, you're not dramatic. You're just not available on demand. That calm confidence speaks volumes. It tells him you're not desperate to see him, and more importantly, that his behavior has consequences. Not because you're trying to teach him a lesson, but because you simply don't have space for inconsistency. The beauty of boundaries is that they don't need to be announced. You don't have to give a speech about what you won't tolerate. You show it through your actions. If he's flaky, you take longer to respond. If he's vague, you don't rearrange your plans for him. You're not punishing him. You're allowing his effort to dictate your engagement. That creates a very different energy. Suddenly, he's the one wondering where he stands. He's the one second guessing whether he's done enough. That little shake in his confidence is often the thing that makes him realize he needs to try harder. And the more he invests, the more he connects. Men don't fall for you because you say yes to everything. They fall when they feel like they have to rise to meet you. And boundaries are what make that possible. They create the tension, the challenge, the intrigue that deepens attraction. When you hold to your standards in a calm, non-reactive way, it builds respect. He starts to see you not just as someone he wants to be around, but someone whose approval means something. This kind of energy can't be faked. It comes from knowing your worth. When you truly believe that your time, energy, and presence are valuable, you stop tolerating behaviors that don't match that belief. You become more selective. You respond rather than react. And in doing so, you change the dynamic entirely. He stops assuming he has you and starts working to keep your attention. That's when he begins to fall. Not just because he's attracted to you, but because he respects you. Because he sees that you won't settle for crumbs when you deserve the whole table. And that level of quiet strength isn't just attractive. It's unforgettable.